5 minutes, we are on. They didn't give us even the heads up, but we are going live. Okay, we're just going to give ourselves a few minutes for people who are joining us on live stream, Facebook, and other platforms to just come and be in the meeting with us. So maybe we give them a minute or two, then we will start. Colleagues who are joining us on Facebook, we are also live on Mala FM, on Radio Zibonele, and Alex FM. So please do let others know that we are on those platforms for them to be able to be part of this conversation. Colleagues are saying the Facebook one is not yet there. So if the technical team can check that it's streaming on Facebook as well. I've just seen a message from July saying on Facebook there's nothing coming through. So please check and fix that glitch. Okay. So I think we are good to go, colleagues. Good afternoon on this beautiful Friday morning, the 25th of February. The year is almost gone. You know, once you pass January, you know that the year is finished. So we know that this month is Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Month. And as Soul City, this is one of the rights that we subscribe to. We believe in bodily autonomy, and we believe in giving young people information so that they may make informed decisions about their sexual health, their reproductive health, and that they enjoy the rights that are enshrined in the constitution of this country. I think you can fully enjoy your rights when you have information about how to access them, what you need to do when they are not availed, or where access is denied, and being allowed to make those decisions about your health. Apologies. you know So we want to have a conversation, and the conversation we want to have says, where are we with SRHR, sexual reproductive health and rights? And with rights, they are always accompanied by responsibilities. You can never talk about rights without talking about responsibilities. So I'm not here to teach or preach. I was asked to do a simple task of welcoming everyone to this panel. So as the CEO of Soul City, I welcome everybody who's joining us on the different platforms. As I indicated, there are radio stations that are joining us. We are on Facebook And I'm sure there'll be Twitter messages that will also be coming through. And we have an esteemed panel today, a panel of young people, a panel of experts in the field, but also we have our Deputy Minister of Health with us today. And I met the DM last year, towards end of last year, for the first time. And I must say, what impressed me in that meeting was his listening skills. He sat down with a group of young people in a room, celebrities, and he listened to conversations as they were happening. And, he was paying attention. And I think for me, if someone as a leader puts time aside to sit and listen, that leader has a vision, because they will definitely take what people are saying and implement, and I hope, DM, that's what will happen, that platforms like this one, where young people are raising issues, where young people are saying we see gaps here, we see gaps there, will be used to help us, you and me, and Meragina, as the leadership, to try and implement interventions that will close the gaps. So without any waste of time, let me acknowledge our panelists. I will start with the young people, and I will then introduce our DM, and then hand over. We have Tumelo Sitole, we have Itumeleng Motlhabane, we have Mthobisi Biela, Tshepiso Musia, Lerato Motapo, and there are those who are in the studio, as you will see on our screen. I'm sure the moderator will introduce them in detail. We also have Meragina Maitufi, who's the Deputy Director in the Directorate of HIV Prevention Strategies at the National Department of Health. And of course, as indicated, we have with us our Honorable Deputy Minister, Deputy Minister Dlomo, and that we welcome you and we thank you for putting time aside to join us, to engage with young people on this very important issue, your sexual reproductive health. I know it's not new to you. You've been in the health space for some time. You were even MEC of Health in KZN. And I know that KZN has one of the best practices when coming to youth clinics. And so we will learn from you as well, as someone who was in the forefront in KZN in terms of making sure that youth services in clinics are provided and to the best of the ability they can be provided. So this is all I was asked to do. I hope you will join, you will engage, you will ask questions, as the deputy minister gives his opening address, listen attentively to the commitments he's making so that you and I, can hold him accountable, as we support him in implementing some of those interventions that he's going to talk to. So I'm going to hand over to you, DM, observing all protocol, for you to give your keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much to our CEO of Salt City, Ms. Podisang, and all the panelists who are here to join me. I hope to deviate a bit from my prepared speech because maybe whoever actually assisted me with the speech did not know what I would like to share with the young people.
Yeah.
Let me start in this way. When we listen to listening to a 17-year-old girl who is now pregnant, coming in to request a termination of pregnancy. Then you said, but why? He said, I was here last year. Yes, I know I was 16 years old, but I needed to be supported to be able to say, I want to finish my matric without falling pregnant. I'm already sexually active, but I did not get the support in another clinic that I went to. Now I've changed, I've come to this one, and I want to terminate this pregnancy. Now, that might be a story of one 17-year-old in Khayelitsha or in Vembe, but it could as well translate to many more of other young people in the country. That is, among other things, having listened to such stories that motivated me to say, maybe let's give a benefit of doubt to say there may as well be many young people out there who are not satisfied with the services that we provide to them, with the information as to how, as they grow, the impact, how to deal with that. So the adolescent and youth friendly services, which we now have really coined in the department as youth zones, has been my dream, and I want us to accelerate that because we're just sitting over 1,200 in the country, and yet we should accelerate. There are provinces that have just minimally established these services, and we want to accelerate because you need to train. You want to say, yes, not all nurses in this clinic, in this hospital, should then be identifying themselves with the youth zones. But we want young people to go to Khayelitsha Clinic and say, I want to speak to Sister Letitia. And once they say that to any nurse there, then they should know that this is a young person who has been told about Sister Letitia, that she is trained now in the adolescent and youth friendly services. So what should be the crux of the matter? Is to say, young people, I am calling you a target population. There are a lot of target populations that we have, but I also want to really give the benefit of calling this group a target population. This is a group of South Africans and maybe internationalists who are not yet HIV positive, who probably have not been exposed so much on sexually transmitted infections, who are not all of them pregnant. But if we don't do what we are trying to put together, they are at a high risk of many more of them getting into those challenges. There's something that we call teenage pregnancy, and I've spoken to our CEO. Teenage pregnancy is when the age are teens. The teens age is 13 to 19. But once you fall pregnant, you are 9 years old. You are not a teenager. It's something else. So while we were talking about teenage pregnancy a few years back, we are now seeing adolescent pregnancy at the age of 10 years, 9 years. Now, if you are delivering a baby today, you are 9 years old, you probably fell pregnant when you were 8 years old. There's something that is teaching us now that you say, because of certain things happening in the world, some people, mainly women, are maturing early. They're getting into puberty much earlier than we would have anticipated. So we need to guard and watch against that and be able to say maybe at the age of 8, we should be strong with this. So I want to say to young people, I'm available. Our impact will be how much we extend these youth zone services countrywide, where you could go to a facility and say, I know I'm 16 years old. I have not discussed with my mother because there's not much sex education at home. I came to this clinic. I need your support. I would want to prevent this pregnancy. I want to prevent the pregnancy until I'm 19, finishing my matric. I want to also avoid getting into sexually transmitted infections. What do I do? Advise me. That is a setup that we need to have. We need to empower young people to be making decisions about, forget about your grandmother, it's about you now. What do you want to see yourself happening? Forget about that there is a sugarcane plantation, somebody must go there and harvest. There's a preaching of you must build roads and clinics. For now, it's about your life, your health. You want to take a responsibility, but we need to empower you and support you. That is my message today. For today, I'm going to stay a bit longer and listen to young people, maybe challenging me and asking me more. So for those who prepared my speech, Gertrude and the team, sorry I deviated from your speech, but I just thought I should really bring it this way to the young people in this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DM, and you have proven me right in what I was saying earlier about the character that I saw you portraying when we first met. You know, you listen, you pay attention, and this is testament to that. So, without wasting time, I'm going to hand over to Ms. Bowie, who's going to be the moderator of the discussion that young people are going to have, while DM and myself sit in the background and listen to these conversations, because I'm equally accountable, in the position that I hold, to ensure that young people in South Africa are provided the services that we say they should receive. And it's not, I think, when you talk about adolescent pregnancy, DM, in 2022, we should not be, dilly-dallying about providing service to young people. We should be decisive about making those services available, and decisive about holding people accountable who fail to provide such services, and we should not forget that any adolescent who falls pregnant, there's a violation that has taken place there. So we need to also address that in the same breath. So I'm going to hand over to Ms. Boyi. Ms. Boyi, over to you as you facilitate the dialogue with the young people. Ms. Boyi, please check your sound. It's not coming through.
I think maybe you can check with the technician because we can't hear the facilitator. Over.
Yes.
Pregnancy. The reason why this touches my heart is because for me, it's been very personal. I grew up in a family where you do not talk about sex as a young child. What is sex? I mean, who are you to talk about sex? You're too young. And I had a situation where a very close family member of mine at the age of 7 was raped, going to school, coming back, and just to be around situation, it got to a point where she got used to it. It got to a point where it didn't even seem dangerous to her anymore. It just was something that was happening, and it really, really broke my heart because I couldn't understand what type of a grown man sees something desirable in such a young child. And working with Soul City actually opened my mind and opened me to so many opportunities of helping young girls and helping young children to say, but guys, this is where we need to be able to establish where we need to draw the line. It's my body, it's my pride, and my answer is no. And it's so sad when you are in communities where you find young girls who don't know about access to services. I never knew about all of those access to services until I was pregnant at the age of 19, and I was questioned, why were you not taking contraceptives? I'm like, okay, what's that?
Yeah, there you have it.
She is.
No, it's quite decided. Oh,
Yeah.
Somebody needs to put a volume up this side so we can hear them. Is it nobody's? Can you hear them?
Yeah, we can hear them on the street.
Is it fine?
so they are live, so they can hear.
They can hear.
They can hear. Oh.
For some reason, it's just me. Well, it's just this side. But if I tell anybody, he might have a heart attack. So it's fine.
It's the moderator's mic. She
Social justice, meaning that giving equal opportunities to young women and also not leaving men behind.
Right.
Meaning that as much as I'm working for a feminist organization, it means that they are also bringing men to also take accountability of what they have been doing.
Right. So feminism definitely does include men. I'm glad you've got that lens. Tell us.
Good morning.
Yes.
It's Kilebogile Swahili speaking. I'm a lady that wears many badges. So I am basically from South African Association of Youth Clubs.
Right.
And my second badge is from an NGO called National Lgbti Health Campaign.
Right.
So I would like to speak about National. What we basically do there is information dissemination of health services. So what got me to be passionate about doing this job is that you need to understand that sexuality or sexual health starts from birth to death.
Right.
So we cannot live without acknowledging that fact. So my concern is young people. I, for an example, grew up without the greatest knowledge.
Right.
But I don't want to see the next child growing up that way.
Great stuff. Two things: knowledge and identity.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then I'm going to pull in Mthobisi. Give us a brief intro of who you are and why you do this work, Mthobisi.
Ish. Okay, I'm sorry. Greetings to everyone. This is Toby Sibiela, Love Life, Head Lifestyle Groundbreaker from KZN. I'm working at Ketomena. As groundbreakers, what we do, we promote health, especially health services offered in clinics, and we make sure that we educate young people about those services. We also encourage them to test for HIV, to know their statuses, as well as making sure that they join local or NPO organizations or any of the local groups, which will make them be active and will make them be more familiar with what, as young people, they should be doing in life.
Thank you so much for that, Mthobisi. I'm going to ask, I think it's Tepiso. That's not, it's Tepiso on the screen, right? Yes. Can you give us a brief intro and then we're diving right into the questions?
Okay, so good day everyone. My name is Tepiso Musia and I am a current affairs news broadcaster. I'm also part of a campaign called Inside My Purse. And what Inside My Purse is all about is basically it's a safe space for young women where we can learn, we can also engage and also teach each other about issues and things that we face, as well as that affect us as young people. It can be from very trivial things, trivial, quote unquote, like relationships, to serious things like our sexual health rights, certain abuses, our aspirations, so on and so forth.
All right, thank you so much. I actually have heard of In My Person. You guys do really amazing work. I'm gonna jump right
you.
in because we stole a bit of time, and I know that Dr. Dlama is meant to be listening in, but I think it's a pertinent question to ask Yena and Umam Regina to just give us a reminder, like reintroduce us to the concept of sexual and reproductive health and rights. What is that? What is it? So when it's all said and done, what does it mean when a person has realized the fullest experience of sexual and reproductive health and rights? I'm going to start with Mam Regina.
Good morning, everybody. Let me also take this opportunity to greet our DM, and it's my pleasure to be part of the discussions this morning. I would like to go straight into the definition of sexual reproductive health according to WHO, which is the World Health Organization. How they have defined this is that sexual and reproductive health is an important aspect of health and fundamental human right. It represents a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being in all matters relating to reproductive system. It also implies that people are able to have a satisfying and actually safe sex life, the capability to produce, and freedom to decide if, when, and how often to do so. This is the definition. So it is important that we made the services available to our young people and to our young girls. I was listening to our DM when he actually stated that our messages should really be starting as early as 8 years, because you can see that we have a challenge there. Because with us, as we were growing, 8 years, it was a time when we did not know so many things. So it is important that we engage with young people as early as 5 years, to start with, so that they understand their rights, they understand their health responsibilities, and they understand the decisions that they need to take. And it is also important that the parents take leadership with regard to empowering young people at home. Even our communities, it is very important that it should be a joint responsibility. I will stop there.
Thank you for that, Mamrichan. I'm going to pull you in, DM, and say, so this very broad and very real definition of what sexual and reproductive health and rights is. I wanted you to bring us home. So, what is the fullest expression for someone who is, as you were saying, 8 years old? How do we ensure, in real terms, that they too understand and experience sexual and reproductive health and rights? I say and rights very specifically because it's not just the knowledge of, but it's also the right to access, right? So how does that 8-year-old, how does that 15-year-old, how does that 19-year-old come into the realization of this definition? Over to you, Dr. Lom.
Yeah. Let me start by showing you how difficult this topic is. By telling you what actually came up 2 days ago. We were at the University of Zululand, meeting with young people, sharing with us their stories in the same program of sexual and reproductive health for young people. And she said to me, to us in the audience, as I'm here, my mom told me that, my girl, you are not going to be coming home every day. You are at the university now. You look after yourself. I would not. I want to advise you, when you are with other girls, that will be fine, but don't go close to the boys. Uh, Especially if there's one boy with you. These boys are carrying certain things in their pockets that are going to make you not to realize your future. Now, here is the mother who's trying her best to give sex education, but she's just falling short of expressing it, because you don't get this leadership in the homes, in the churches, in the schools, even with the traditional leadership everywhere else. So it would be, you are actually creating a revolution, a movement amongst ourselves. Because I am able to speak to you. I can't speak as I do now unless my 17-year-old girl is in the audience. But to sit on one-to-one with her, I always ask her, have you got condoms? And she says she has. Then I leave it at that. So you see, at my level myself, as a health activist and an activist for young people's sexual reproductive health life, I am still constrained by the beliefs that we do have. But I also want to say, in doing this, we must rely on these dialogues, that some of us must continue doing it, because you can't rely on us as parents, like this parent who was saying, just be careful of this boy who's got certain things in his pocket. He must not stand with you at the corner of the university alone, rather be in the middle of many other people. And we also must educate our boy child about life, so that we don't always say it's about girl and girl, because these girls don't make themselves pregnant. There are boys out there who must be told and be responsible enough. I'm sharing this because in another high school, there was a celebration which I found it very demeaning, of a principal who was celebrating that this boy is a stalker because he made 5 girls pregnant in one school. And therefore, to him, it was something to be celebrated. He was brought into the assembly in the school to say, look at this boy, how capable he is to make 5 girls pregnant. So it was a very opposite of what we need to do. And obviously, for all of them to be pregnant, there was no condom use on 5. And also talk about multiple sexual partners. But it's not so many about girls wanting to have many sexual partners, but it is boys who think it is manhood. It is that thing about me having many sexual partners, and some of them without condoms, and therefore having 5 girls pregnant in one day. So it's a difficult topic. You can't rely on our parents, on our schools, on our churches to lead it. It is going to be us with young people who must always talk about it amongst the young people themselves. They don't have a cohort of elderly people who can advise them. They always hide and not tell them the full story of what is sex and reproductive health. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that very real feedback, Dr. Lim. I think the communal experience of sexual and reproductive health is generally missing and just kind of left to organizations who already do the work. And I found it very interesting that you going to where the issue is, where there is an issue where younger men and boys really feel that their masculinity is dependent on how many partners exist. And I'm going to pick on Lerato here and say, what is it that's missing in the work that we do in sexual and reproductive health? That what are we not saying to boys? What are we not saying to men that would kind of make them understand?
We cannot hear any voice. Am I the only one who's been disconnected? I
So
can see
as
no.
is that we actually need. I think as guys we need to come together and actually discuss these issues of sexual relations.
Okay, go on.
So as guys we need to actually come together and have conversation around issues of sexual reproductive health and rights and actually how to access these services. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. We must apologize. The audio is on and off, so just give us an indication if you can't hear us. We're gonna quickly go to Facebook. I see that Kanyiswa Kwacha is saying, I think that parents should be educated as well, because there are parents who throw away prevention pills when they see that their children are taking them instead of being proud that they are taking control and preventing. So this is speaking directly to contraceptives. And so for me, I think the next question then that exists is, in the space where there is adolescents, young people, young women, young men, in these spaces, is there space to speak about identity, to speak about pleasure? Because Mama China was speaking about good sex. They're not just saying, well, you need to be healthy, but they're talking about pleasurable sex. So is there space for people to not only speak about ill health, but to also speak about identity, sexual pleasure, and then subsequently sexual health? I'm going to pick on you, Itu, and then I'm going to go to Tepiso from In My Purse. Do we speak about identity? Do we speak about pleasure in the same breath as sexual health?
Okay, it's Kilebogile.
Sorry.
So, in the spaces that we mainly create for young people, we do create a platform for such conversations.
Right.
So, I think what we can do as the department and CBOs is create youth dialogues that will give young people an open space to discuss these issues. Remember, when you are sitting in a room, you want to be comfortable enough to engage. So I think it should be youth dialogues by youth people on a platform and a language understood by youth people. So I think if we take it in that directive, it will be easier for the young people to express themselves in that way.
Pull me in a bit closer. When we're talking about youth-friendly spaces, right? Adolescent and youth-friendly spaces. You have spoken about doing the work in the LGBTI community. In the spaces that currently exist, that Dr. Loma was mentioning, is there space for people to talk about their gender and sexual identities?
Basically, I'll speak on behalf of what we do. We do give that platform, as I had said before. It is a matter of it being seen or known of. So I think visibility would be a matter that needs to be discussed as well.
Right.
There are platforms, maybe it's an issue of people not knowing about them. Yeah.
Okay, great. So platforms exist. People just need to know where they are. So you work within My Purse and you're also in the media space as well. How important is it to ensure that conversations around sexual identity and gender identity are easily accessible and easy to speak about?
I think it is very important because it's when we encourage dialogue about, sexuality, sexual health, even sex itself, encouraging people to have safe and pleasurable sex. I think when we do that, we are helping destigmatize the taboos that are surrounded that come with the whole idea of sex and sexuality and everything else that is related to it, which also makes it very difficult for people to access sexual reproductive health. services and information and all of that. So I think when we encourage dialogue, we help destigmatize all of that. And in turn, we help with some of the issues that we have. For example, right now, one of the contentious issues that we're currently facing is adolescent pregnancy. You know, if we were to start having those conversations and destigmatizing some of those conversations, and, you know, having those conversations does not necessarily mean we are having conversations that are very difficult to digest in terms of like certain restrictions. So we must have age appropriate conversations. So when we start having these conversations with younger people, like your 8-year-olds, we start with encouraging things like autonomy. That's where the conversation starts. Like, this is your body. You're supposed to do things to your body that you want to do. If someone comes and touches your body or asks you questions about your body, you have a right to say no. You have a right to only indulge people in terms of your, and that does not mean we are saying at 8 years old you can have sex or you should be having sex. And I think the reason people shy away from such conversations is because they think that conversations surrounding that equal to encouraging people to have sex, and they don't recognize that once we do have those conversations, we are fostering a culture of openness. We are fostering a culture where young people can actually come and talk to other people and say, nurse, I'm 9 years old and someone touched me. Do you understand? Because if we don't teach young people about autonomy, they don't understand. If someone touches them, they feel it's wrong. But because the culture of talking about such things is so taboo and frowned upon, they think it's wrong to even address the fact that someone had touched them. You understand? And conversations also help with things like HIV and AIDS. When you feel like something is going on in your body, even as outside of like being an adolescent, sometimes you are 25 years old and you are a bit suspicious of, you know, I'm not too comfortable, you know, when I go to the toilet, I don't know what's going on. If we were to start having those conversations, immediately when I start experiencing some of those things, I'm able to rush to my nearest clinic or whatever and have a conversation with anyone there and say, listen, I'm uncomfortable, and start the process of screening for anything. It could be an STI, it could be anything else that's related to SRHR matters. And that's why it's important to have those conversations, I feel.
Thank you for that. I think having picking up the notion of age appropriate information, and also a sliding scale or an upward trajectory of comfort around talking about what is comfortable, what is not comfortable, what you're uncertain about, and then the requirement to kind of go and check if anything is wrong really is a big one. And so I think it brings me to the next question. And I'm going to pose this one firstly to Mom Regina, because I think when it's an interesting one, because the notion of adolescent and young is quite a big age group, right? To think of a 10-year-old and also to think of a 19-year-old and what their needs are. So what I wanted to find out from you is, what are the gaps? You know, what are the gaps that currently exist in the offerings of the sexual and reproductive health and youth-friendly services? And in saying that as well, how do we ensure that in the next 2 years we're not necessarily having the exact same conversation? So what are the gaps that exist right now? I'm going to hand it over to you, Mom Regina. Have I lost you? Okay, while we're looking for Mom Regina, I'm just going to read from Facebook. Fina is saying that people associate conversations and education on sexual and reproductive health as encouraging young people to have sex, even when they're not ready to do so. And that's the truth. So I'm going to pick on you, Tumelo, to say, according to the work that you do, like, you know, what are the gaps that we're picking up when it comes to systemically inside of the health system itself, and also communally? What are the gaps that you're picking up when it comes to access?
Okay, my name is Dumelo. I am a social mobilizer working for Soul City Institute. The gaps in terms of, let's start communally. Just yesterday, I was actually with a group of girls aged between 15 and 19, and we were talking about the topic around having a conversation with your parent around sex and sexual health. And they were all saying, but sister, we are scared. We are scared of our grandmothers, we are scared of our mothers. And the LO teachers were there, and they were like, but that would also be the safest place for you to have these conversations. I remember in a previous webinar that we had, Omam Fina actually used to say that parents, we should learn to speak and have these conversations with our children, because if we're not talking to someone somewhere, having those conversations with them, and then it limits the control for us as parents as far as what do they know, how far they're going, what the pace is. So the gap in the communication, I think it's actually a very big gap that also we as social mobilizers are trying to bridge by having meetings, by having dialogues. I do believe that the dialogues are making the impact. Maybe not as quick as anticipated, but they are making the impact because people are actually getting the information. People are actually using the information. I would like to believe that from my experience in talking to young people. And as far as in the department is concerned, I would ask my girls, why aren't you guys going to the clinic? And they would complain about, but I would go to the clinic and now my mother's friend maybe works at the clinic, maybe as a cleaner or not even a nurse. And now my mother knows that I was in the family planning queue, or maybe someone who is even a health professional, spoke to my aunt or whoever, or my neighbor. And as a result, I don't want to be seen, in those spaces, because I don't want my parents knowing that I'm queuing over there, because then they know that I'm having sex and that will create problems. So the youth zones, as much as we are still in the implementing phase, I do believe that we can expect very big and very positive results from them. I honestly do believe it, because we work with AYFS champions who are almost as young as we are. So the conversation is easier, they relate easier, and it can be less formal and less scary to go to a clinic. It can be as cool as going anywhere else. It can be as relaxing, where we can all have a conversation, no judgment, no nothing. So the gaps are just in the communication, but with everything that we are doing currently, I do believe strongly that we can expect very good results.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think being able to acknowledge that the work is already going on is really, really critical, because sometimes you can stay in the stalemate of nothing's working. So the adolescent and youth friendly services are a really big potential for us to work from. I think Dr. Lama actually alluded to even the fact that there are nurses who understand and do the work with young people. I'm not sure if Mamrichana is now with us, but I wanted us to identify gaps. Mamrichana, just because I think there is a need for us to say, okay, this is working well, it has great potential, but we still have these particular gaps, because in the work that you're doing with Soul City and other institutions, it's really critical for us to kind of fill the gaps as well as we do the work.
My apologies. I think from the department point of view is that we have been working together with Soul City and also the Dreams partners to make sure that we prioritize the accessibility and affordability of youth-friendly services in our facilities, and also to ensure that we support our healthcare professionals with regard to management of the youth in the facilities. So we the department, we are actually saying that we need to make sure that the environment, it is really therapeutic, whereby the youth is able to come to the facility at any time when they think that they are in need of the services. And then within the space of the youth-friendly services or the youth zones, they should be empowered. And then as I'm speaking, in some of the facilities, we have provided with the videos so that whilst they are still waiting, they are able to access information in their waiting area. And then we are also having the youth champions or the youth navigators who are able to navigate the youth as they come to the facilities so that they can be able to access the services as in when they come. And then again, what we are also strengthening is the support groups. Within the support groups, that's when the youth are able to have the discussions with their youth mentors and also in the presence of the professional nurses to be able to guide them and to be able to address the challenges that are also coming in. And then as the Department of Health, we are at the moment busy training all the healthcare workers with regard to youth-friendly services, and we are also expanding the youth zone so that the services is available as in when they come. And then we are also in the social media platform where we are actually having such discussion through our BYs and through our Mom Connect. And then the other thing that our participants have been talking about, it has been empowerment and advocacy. So what we have done as the department for this year in support of the SRH month, we have developed the message booklet. This message booklet, the purpose of this message booklet is to ensure that we address the issues that are related to accessibility of services for the young people. And then again, we are also saying that with our concept note that we have developed for SRH is that we are going to make sure that there is a continuous deliberation on health issues, on SRH, on STIs, on HIV, and also on non-communicable disease. So we said that in each and every month according to the health calendar, we are going to have deliberation about the youth issues up until the end of the year, and also towards we will also build up towards the World AIDS Day. So our platform of communicating and liaising with young people is through youth zones and also youth-friendly services. And we are also saying that we will be having the conferences, as we can see that our deputy minister is the lead on this. So there are plans to make sure that we are having more of the engagement with the young people, because we want to make sure that we have the messages that are consistent and making sure that we communicate every day, because the aim of these messages is to also make sure that we change the behavior. And then we are also working closely with men's health. At the department, we are working close, as you know, that we've got men's health. The men's health has also been roped into the discussion to also make sure that we bring in men, we bring in young boys into the discussion. And then I have indicated that the department...
Not to cut you, Ma'am Regina, because I think you are touching on something very important. The notion of information also bringing in men's health. I mean, one would argue that there's quite a lot of information readily available in very many spaces, and we're still seeing sort of the same kind of patterns when it comes to pregnancy, and also escalating numbers when it comes to HIV. So what is shifting? What is changing? What is the thing that, in terms of for you, particularly in terms of HIV prevention strategies that exist that will shift the trajectory of HIV infections? And then when you're sinking into the notion of including men and boys, what specifically are you saying there? Because as Lerato was saying, there's almost a culture of not having this conversation with men and boys. So for me, I'm saying this is a conversation about gaps. So you're saying that you're pulling in men and boys, and I'm saying that there is information already. So what's changing? What's shifting? What's changing in the conferencing, in the directed communications, in the information? What is changing?
What we are basically saying is that what is going to change now is to involve the men in the rural area. We are also going to make sure that we rope in the men in the taxi industries to have these discussions regarding the prevention and also regarding the SRH messages. And then again, what we are also saying is that through these discussions, we want to make sure that the young people, they are the one that are actually assisting us in shaping up the messages that need to be developed, because what we have been doing is like we have been developing the messages, but the message that we have been developing, it has not resulted in the behavior change. Now we are saying we need to make sure that we involve the young people with regard to the development of the messages. And then we are also saying that we need to also pre-test those messages, and then we need to make sure that they are actually the one who are actually leading in making sure that the discussions are taking place in the youth-friendly services, in the youth zones, and also in our communities. And then in terms of our communities, we have also said that we are also going to be engaging the traditional leaders. We need to the traditional leaders to be involved, and then to also hear from them to say, how do we change what has been happening to make sure that we listen to the young people, so that we can make sure that we change the trajectory of what is happening in the community, and also we improve accessibility and availability of services for young people.
Thank you. That's a very, very big deal. I think being able to pull in the taxi industry, traditional leaders, traditional healers even, is a really big one. And also making sure that young people's voices are not lost in the process. So I'm going to pull Mtobisi in and say, there is Ubabajana right now was talking about making sure that young people are part of the crafting of messaging. What do you think would be the responsibility of young people? What's the responsibility? I mean, look, there's clinics, there's youth-friendly services, there's very intentional work to ensure that at the end of the day, people live better quality of life, right? So what is the responsibility of a young person when it comes to these things?
Okay, thank you. What I've noticed first is that young people love arts, young people love sports, young people love other activities related to those which I've just counted. So if we can incorporate all those activities with our dialogues, or I mean with our youth zones, make sure that we invite local artists, we invite the youth to showcase their talents. While they are in the youth zone, they are performing, we are able then to just share the information regarding the sexual reproductive health. Yeah. So if we can attract them to the clinic using those activities, I think we can achieve what we are trying to achieve. However, yes, we are achieving what we are trying to achieve through implementing these programs. I also think we should work, or that the department should work with other local artists, local organizations, those are focusing mostly on the youth, so that when they organize programs, in their communities, like sports programs, arts programs. It's where we will find more young people. Then we go to those places, and then we are led by young people, right? So I think indlela that we can use.
Thank you for that, Ntobis. I think integrated way of working really is the best way of working. It's the understanding that people are not just in one place, right? So some people will not be going to clinics to learn, but they will be playing soccer, they will be in drama class, they would be in their little debating competitions. There's still debating competitions in school. So being able to infuse messaging into those spaces really would be useful. I wanted to also pull into episode and say, in terms of responsibility, have you been able to pick up through the work that you do, what are young people meant to be doing? Like, okay, fine, we are all taking in this information, but what should we also be doing to ensure that the information is also actionable? What should we be doing?
I think I think there are two perspectives. So there is the young people who we communicate with through these organizations and campaigns that we do. From that perspective, I think the biggest responsibility would be just for them to show up. I think for them to show up, and not just show up as in be in the audience to come and receive maybe some of the incentives, but to show up and engage in what the message is of what the conversation is all about. I think that is going to help. I think saying they're supposed to participate in this, that, and the other, and do that, and that, and the next. I think it takes away from the autonomy that at the end of the day, it's still up to them, and they should still understand that these things are in the best interests of them. However, they still have the right to do whatever they want. So I think from that perspective, I think their biggest responsibility, the audience perspective, young people, or everyone else actually from every other demographic, because I am realizing that the conversation around Srhr is expanding. It always has been actually about every member of society, every person from every demographic, but it's almost like it had been centered around, let's say, young people or just women. But I just want to say, to reiterate, that their biggest responsibility is just showing up and taking what they can do, and as far as they can, implement what they learn into their lives and practice that, so that we can eliminate, and so that they can have, I think, a quality of life. There is a definition from the World Health Organization that sexual health is all it improves a person's overall quality of life, you understand. But I think the responsibility from our perspective, coming from organizations, coming from campaigns, is to make sure that we include the people who we are saying we're catering for. It's very important that we don't have these conversations exclusively thinking about us, thinking that we know what's best. It's very important that we integrate them into whatever program we come up with, that we center the people in our what we're trying to do, as well as not just speak and actually implement what we are saying. We can't just have these conversations every single month. We have to actually go out there and make sure that we are creating these spaces that we're talking about in theory, that in practice we're trying as far as we can to implement them. And sometimes it can be as far as just going to your nearest clinic and trying to engage with the department that deals with family planning and so on and so forth, just to equip them with some of the information that we think they need. We do understand that healthcare workers are better equipped, but I think when it comes to the social justice part of it, sometimes they do miss the mark. They are said to have a lot of stigmas and stereotypes around healthcare workers. So I think that's where we come in, the collaboration. I think that's where our responsibility comes in as some of these movements, these organizations. As we call ourselves activists, it's very important that we don't just speak and actually do as much as we can. I find that a lot of our programs are centered around cities. You walk around, I'm from Bloem, so you walk around Bloemfontein, the CBD, and you see your New Start, you see every other little organizations, and it's very beautiful to see. But then you go to a smaller town and you can spend the whole Easter weekend or period, and there's no pop-up that happens. And it's very important that we take the initiative and actually go into these places and not just go there once a month. I mean, once a year, World AIDS Day, that we have continued conversation and integrate the people. Very important, we integrate the people that we are allegedly catering for.
Thank you for that, Tepi. So I think understanding that this work is not once off, and understanding that pulling in the different players to be in one place is important. And also I think there's an understated notion, right? Like Umtabis was talking about sports and arts and stuff like that. That campaign work, that information and awareness does not just take one shape, right? It might not be a pop-up. It might be that there is a youth service somewhere in a church, and in that youth service there's someone who is either a champion, an ambassador, who's part of that service and is able to then do the work in there. And so I think that educating wherever we are and the learning wherever we are helps to ensure that all spaces have the information so that people know where to access what it is that they need. So I wanted to find out now, Bana, is there space for innovation? Because I mean, it's not just also about young people, but like people on social media, which is great. Right now, people are listening in and they can comment on what we're saying. But what other kinds of innovations can exist in ensuring that there's greater access, there's greater knowledge, and there's greater understanding? Anyone feeling hot like innovation is in my veins? Let me tell you something.
For me, I'd start off at where Tobisi left off.
Right.
So for me, I'd say have influencers. I think there are people who influences the community. If you can have them influencing. I used to see in an advert, Yama Condom, whereby Peltusi was the influencer.
Right.
So if we can therefore bring such things back. In Gauteng, we also have collaborated with a painting artist. So he writes messages whenever we get a chance or whenever we get a wall whereby he can write such messages.
Right.
And the third part would be social media. Social media has played a very big role. We are now moving to the fourth industrial revolution. So therefore, social media will play a huge role. Your WhatsApp, your Twitter, your Facebook. There.
Right. So, and just as a reminder, there are existing platforms where you can get information and you can ask questions like your BYs, right? Where you can also find out where resources are available or clinics are available. I am being told I need to wrap it up. It's good, but I need to wrap it up. And I wanted to quickly go to Dr. Lomo on something that I think is really, really critical, which is around the notion of confidentiality, right? A lot of young people, in fact, all of us, like we struggle with issues of confidentiality, and sometimes the services that we need are in the areas that we live in, and trying to go to another area means a whole other complex conversation with a healthcare worker. How do we complain? How do we shine the light on the issues of confidentiality? That's the first one for Dr. Loma. And then secondary to that, Dr. Loma, I think a lot of burden is carried by healthcare workers. Everything that's wrong with the health system, they bear the burden. And so for me, I'm trying to find out as a community, because we're saying this is communal, right? How do we support healthcare workers so that they can do their work better and they also feel supported by us? Okay, I'm not sure if Dr. Lama is still with us. If not, I would like to ask Mama Jana if you can take it. How do we work with the issue of confidentiality, and how do we also ensure that healthcare workers feel supported by us, because they do quite amazing and a lot of work? How do we ensure as we do the work that they feel supported by us?
Okay, I will start with the last question, which is about the healthcare worker support. So in terms of the healthcare worker support, I have mentioned that we are doing the sensitization trainings. We are also working closely with our partners, the DREAMS partners, to make sure that they really capacitate our healthcare workers. And then one of the things that we are also doing is that within the facilities, we are actually encouraging our operational managers to mentor the program and ensure that they are having the available policies, the guidelines, so that they are also focused on what the Department of Health want to implement. And then the other thing is that we are also having the suggestion box with that we usually look at to say that what are the issues that comes from the facilities, and then we are able to make sure that we respond accordingly. And then again, in the facilities, what is happening, we are having the clinic committees. The purpose of the clinic committees is to make sure that the community and the clinics, they work together so that there is a deliberation. We get the messages from the community and then we action that. So those are the things that are in place to support the healthcare workers. And then the other thing that I have also seen is that there is also a kind of like the reward, like for example, through the PMDS, our staff, they are also supported through that system. I can see that the DM is here. Maybe if ever I can hand over to him for further for further information.
Thank you very much, Mama Jana. DM?
I touched the wrong button. Sorry for that. I'm already on the road. I hope you can still hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes. No, just to add on that, we are dealing with a very difficult topic, but which is necessary. So that is the starting point as one is wrapping up. We need to continue relying on our dialogues because we are saying we don't have a cohort of South Africans who are brave enough, whether parents, teachers, preachers, religious leaders who can take this message on a daily basis. So we must rely on this process very much on the time. But secondly, on the issue about healthcare workers, we would want to identify youth zones in every facility. So let's rely on saying not every clinic will have all 10 nurses knowing our programs. Because the issue of confidentiality, yes, it is talked about as we train nurses, doctors, pharmacists. But on this one, you need to be extra careful that we retrain them when they get exposure on this program that we call youth-friendly services. But lastly, there is what we call a presidential health compact, which among other things is beyond just one clinic, one nurse, calling upon our department, our government to provide the necessary equipment and support to each and every facility so that there is a space and an availability of these services. No use training nurses on youth zone, youth-friendly services, and they have no space to work from. Because yes, as the stigma still is there, you need to get the young people coming into our facilities after lunch, 3 o'clock from school, and find a particular space that is very much good for them to be there without being exposed as we start, without being exposed to the auntie who is a cleaner there, who's a friend to my mother and to my sister. So those are things that we need to be careful about. But a healthcare trained nurse on youth-friendly services will be sensitive to those and assist and navigate with the young people when they visit a facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. It's quite comprehensive and it kind of gives us a bone with a bit of flesh to work with, right? Support as well as ensuring that young people don't feel exposed when they go to the spaces. And I see that there are comments coming from Facebook. So before I wrap it up, I'm just going to pick up some of these comments from Facebook. Managa Pele is saying market square events should not be an end in itself. These conversations are complex and often linked to agency and mastery, and thus information and awareness is just the tip of the iceberg. I hear you. It's really about how do you figure out what works for you as a young person, and of course, information is part of it, but mastering who you are is critical. July is saying, I would wish to see the clinics and operational times be reviewed and aligned with school times. Young people are in school between 7 and 4 in the afternoon, and most of these clinics are closing at 4:30 in the afternoon, and most are far to be reached due to distance. By the time a learner arrives home and has to walk, they've had to walk a long distance to the clinic and only to find that it's closed. It's discouraging to youth, and this is a barrier to accessibility of services. Very strong. And then we've got Fina. Fina saying, I want to challenge young people as well to take ownership of their sexual and reproductive health. Don't allow yourself to have unprotected sex. If you know you're not on contraceptives, you know the risk you are taking if you are sexually active. Let's take ownership and be our own agents of change. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. It's really, really critical. The issue of self-mastery that Magana was talking about, issues really all right, so I'm going to wrap it up. And some of the things that really came out strong here is that sexual and reproductive health is a communal thing. It can't be left to just one person to navigate. Secondary to that, we need age-appropriate information that's easily accessible. And I think we didn't punt enough the conversation around sexual identities and gender identities, and in the world and in studio.
Will be there. Our manager is also attending
Yes.
the event there.
Okay. If you're close by, roll up. It's genuinely fun. Launches says as we are a country that will launch things and make them look good, right? So make sure that you go through. And in closing, I'd really like to acknowledge you for taking time to have this conversation with us. Your contributions have been valuable. Thank you so much, Mam Regina and Dr. Lama, for making yourself available for this conversation. The Department of Health, of course, Soul City Institution for hosting this space, critical, ongoing. It's never going to change. We're going to talk and talk and talk until you can hear us. I would like to acknowledge Love Life for the continued work that they do inside my purse. We need you. There's always love. It's deep, and in youth spaces is really, really critical. It really has been really great spending time and hearing your thoughts around health. I wish we had more time because I really wanted to speak about pleasure and how we begin to have that conversation, age-appropriate conversation, but integrated conversation, so that we make sure that people don't only think about sexual health, but even when it's nice, they're within the sexual health conversation. My name is Kanyisa Boy. Thank you so much for joining the Soul City Institute in this conversation. Have a wonderful, wonderful Friday.